Hi everyone, and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today I'm going to be making this very simple checkered basket out of scrap yarn. So this means you can use any yarn, and we will be using more than what you see here. I'm just not sure how much. And go ahead and grab all 3 strands of your yarn, and we are going to work these simultaneously like they are one. And we'll also be using a size N or 15 or 10 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. And we're going to chain 2 and then place 12 double crochets inside of it. And if you're unfamiliar with any of the stitches used in this pattern, then please check the links in the description because I will have my stitch tutorials listed down there for you. And at the end of your row, you're just going to pull on your tails to close the gap in your magic circle. And then we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch, and I am going to work over my tails. We're going to chain 2, and then we're going to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row. And that does include this first stitch where we placed our slip stitch right here. So go ahead and place 2 double crochets in each stitch in your row. And when you get done, you should have a total of 24 double crochet stitches. And at the end of your row, it should look something like this. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch. So you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 2. And the pattern for this row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in our first stitch and then 2 double crochets in our second stitch. And we're going to alternate between placing 1 and 2 double crochet stitches going all the way around our row. And when we get done, we should have a total of 36 double crochet stitches. And our first double crochet stitch is going to go back in that same stitch where we placed our slip stitch and our chain 2. So right here. So go ahead and repeat that alternating pattern going all the way around your row. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. And then we're going to chain 2 again. And the pattern for our next row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in your first 2 stitches and then 2 double crochets in your third stitch. And you're going to repeat that going around your row. And your first stitch is going to be the same stitch where you placed your slip stitch and your chain 2. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 48 double crochet stitches. And again, we're going to skip our slip stitch and our chain 2 and slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch. And we're going to chain 2 again. And the pattern for this row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 3 stitches and then 2 double crochets in our 4th stitch. And that does include our first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. So go ahead and repeat that pattern going around your row, and when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 60 double crochet stitches. And that was our last row of increasing. So from here, we are going to place 1 double crochet in the back loop only of each stitch in our row. And that does include this first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. So go ahead and place 1 double crochet in the back loop only of each stitch in your row. And at the end of our row, our basket should look like this. So we're just going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch. Make sure you skip your chain 2 and your slip stitch. And from here on out, we are going to be working post stitches. So these are worked around the stem that forms our double crochet stitch. So these will not be made in the top portion of your stitch, but instead around your double crochet stitches. And we're going to work 5 post stitches at a time and then switch. So we're going to place one front post stitch in our first 5 stitches here. So I'm going to be working in the stitch directly below my slip stitch, so right here. And we're going to begin by yarning over, and then we're going to insert our crochet hook in between these 2 double crochet stitches here, just like that. Then we're going to wrap our crochet hook around the stem and come out on the other side. And you're just going to yarn over and pull up through the stem, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops, and then yarn over and drop your remaining 2 loops. And we're just going to repeat that in our next 4 stitches so that we have a total of 5 front post stitches. And once you have your 5 front post stitches, it should look something like this. And now we're going to place 1 back post stitch in our next 5 stitches. So to place a back post stitch, you're going to yarn over, and then working from the back of your crochet project, you're going to insert your crochet hook in between our 2 double crochet stitches here. Then you are going to wind around your stem and then insert your crochet hook back to the back of your project like this. And I do find it helpful to go ahead and turn so I can see my stem here. And next we're going to yarn over and pull up through our stem, and then again yarn over and drop 2 loops, and then yarn over and drop our remaining 2 loops. And as you can see here, that sort of pushes the top of our stitches out. So we're just going to repeat that process in our next 4 stitches. And once you have your 5 back post stitches in place, it should look something like this. So now we're just going to alternate between front and back post stitches going all the way around our row. And we're going to work these in sets of 5. So we're going to place 1 front post stitch in our next 5 stitches and then 1 back post stitch in the following 5. And we're just going to keep alternating until we get to the end of our row. And at the end of your row, you're just going to slip stitch into the top of your first front post stitch. And from here, we're going to repeat our last row twice. So for every stitch where you had a front post stitch, you will place a front post stitch. And every stitch that was a back post stitch will be a back post stitch. And to place your post stitches in a post stitch, you're just going to work around the stem of your post like this. So go ahead and follow that pattern for 2 more rows. And at the end of each row, you're just going to slip stitch into the top of your first post stitch. And when you start to run out of a strand of yarn, go ahead and set that strand to the side and grab your next strand. And then all you're going to do is start to crochet with it. Just like that. And then I like to tie my 2 ends together to secure them. So that's how you add in more yarn. And after you have worked your 3 rows of your post stitches, then you're just going to switch. So in every stitch where you had a front post stitch, you will now place a back post stitch. And in every back post, you will now place a front post. And we're just going to place 4 rows of post stitches like that, and then we're going to switch again for 4 rows. And that is going to be our pattern for the entire basket. And I went ahead and crocheted this until I had 5 sections of my checkered pattern. And my very last section only has 3 rows. So you can adjust this number to whatever height you want. And from here, I'm going to show you how to make the handles. So all we're going to do for our next row is chain 1, And then we're going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row. And that does include that first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. So go ahead and place 1 single crochet in each stitch in your row. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 1, and you're going to slip stitch into your first single crochet stitch. And from here, we are going to chain 12. And then we are going to skip 12 stitches. And we are going to single crochet into our 13th stitch. So that's what your first handle should look like. And from here, we're going to place 1 single crochet in our next 17 stitches, so that we have a total of 18 if you count this first one. And once you've placed your 18 single crochets, then you're going to chain 12 again. And again, we are going to skip 12 stitches, and then we're going to single crochet into our 13th stitch. And from here, we're going to place 1 single crochet in our next 17 stitches, and that should get us back to our first handle. And for the handles, you will be working in that first slip stitch. So your 18th single crochet should be in that slip stitch. And the pattern from here is going to be to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row. But when it comes to the handles, I am going to crochet around the chain like this. So I'm just going to place 12 single crochets around my chain for each of my handles, and then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the 18 stitches between them. And when you get to the end of your row, your pattern should look something like this. And the pattern from here is going to be continuous loop. So we won't be starting and stopping our individual rows, but it's going to act like a spiral instead. So all we're going to do is place 1 single crochet in each stitch in each row to build the body of our handles. So we're just going to crochet over the single crochet stitches of our handles like this, and then we're just going to place 1 single crochet in the stitches between our handles. And we're going to repeat this for multiple rows until we get it to the look that we like. And I went ahead and crocheted 3 rows of single crochets over my handles. So to finish off the basket, we're just going to place 1 slip stitch in our next 5 to 7 stitches. And make sure you end your slip stitches before you get to the opening of your handle. And next, we're just going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I am going to weave my tail down the inside of my basket. And please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were making this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Lipstick on a Rig. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.